Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find it interesting that many of my colleagues continue to talk about how Republicans screaming about open borders is causing this invasion. I want to ask a couple of the panelists, were any of you guys paying attention back in the presidential campaign back in September 2019 when then candidate Joe Biden said, "We're a nation who says if you want to flee and you're freeing oppression, you should come"? Mr. Wolf, did you hear that?
I did.
Mr. Scott, did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Edlow?
I'll be honest, Congressman, I wasn't paying attention at that point.
Darn it, Mr. Edlow, you broke the streak. Ms. Acer, how about yourself?
Words, but certainly I've heard President Biden speak positively about the importance of seeking asylum.
What do you think, Mr. Wolf, what kind of message do you think that sends to people that might want a better life?
Well, I think it sends the message that the borders are open. Now is the time to come. If I'm elected, there's going to be a new security regime along those borders, and I think that we saw the results of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to double tap on that because that is a massive part of the causation here. Next, I find it interesting as I sit in this chamber and I continue to hear political theater, this is all political theater. I want to go through some of the political theater that we continue to hear. 4.8 million encounters at the southwest border, 1.3 million known gotaways, 69 individuals just this year on the terrorist watch list, 71,238 fentanyl deaths in 2022. Does that sound like political theater to you guys?
It does not.
No, it's not. How about this? Border town's only hospital running out of resources on the brink of collapse, caring for migrants, Yuma, Arizona, in the state that I represent. Does that sound like political theater? That's the problem. These are real lives. These are real issues. This is real infrastructure that is being overrun. This isn't political theater. The reason we continue to scream about it is because our colleagues don't really seem to care. And quite honestly, the American people sends us, congressmen and women, representatives to represent them up here in Washington, D.C., and they are feeling the causation of these policies. They are feeling the causation of this plan. I want to also go into the political theater of what the American taxpayer feels. $182 billion reported to cover the costs incurred from the presence of illegal aliens. That's $1,156 every year per taxpayer. Is that political theater? Do people feel that, Mr. Wolf?
I believe they do feel that, and I think the most concerning thing is it's all avoidable.
Absolutely. What about you, Mr. Scott? Do you think that American taxpayers feel that?
Spent most of my career along the southwest border. I work with Texas a lot right now, and they're double paying for border security. It's a resounding yes, and it's completely avoidable.
Absolutely. How about 5 suspected MS-13 gang members in U.S. illegally charged with murder and death of Maryland 15-year-old? Is that political theater? California, MS-13 gang member accused of 10-year-old's torture and murder. How about that? Political theater? How about this one? 5 MS-13 gang members who killed Virginia teenagers sentenced to life in prison, Washington Post. More political theater that we have to continue to scream about because nobody on the other side is listening. This administration continues to ignore it. You know, one of the most interesting things, because I'm the last person that gets to question anybody. Mr. Scott, I heard you testifying. How many administrations did you serve under, sir?
I was in the Border Patrol for about 6. I was in leadership positions in 5.
Right. And, you know, you said something that really struck me as somebody who's been in the military before. You said that when you actually, and members of your team actually brought up deterrence on phone calls with this secretary, that you guys were shut down immediately.
Correct. Face-to-face. Transition teams, phone calls, the entire time.
That seems really odd, sir. It doesn't sound as if this secretary wanted to hear what could stop these 71,000 fentanyl deaths, what could stop these hospitals from getting overrun, what could stop these children from getting murdered by MS-13 gang members, does it?
No, we were prevented from talking about border security or threats at all.
And the last thing I want to say, Ms. Acer, I know you spent a lot of your life trying to help migrants, right? I read your bio. And I think a lot of Americans can identify with that and even appreciate it. What they don't appreciate is that your concern and care does not seem to extend to them whatsoever. That's a problem. And ma'am, I want to ask you one question. Has your organization ever taken money from the Soros Foundation?
Excuse me?
The Soros Foundation. Have
Yes,
you ever?
yes. We've received money from multiple foundations over many years.
You know how much money you guys have taken from the Soros Foundation?
No, I do not know how much money we've taken in from any foundation, and I just am really troubled if you're somehow picking on one particular foundation. There's a long history of the Soros Foundation being targeted for anti-Semitic reasons.
That has nothing to do, ma'am, with why we have an issue with it. Everybody knows that George Soros is a globalist and uses his money to often destroy the very things that protect Americans, our way of life, and our freedom. That's exactly why I asked you the question. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.